Hello, good evening, and welcome to 30 Days of Doctrine. It is good to have you here. So today, a very, very important part of the series, I want to provide another historic evidence that points to the reliability, that points to the authenticity of Scripture. And there's an important reason why we're doing this, all right? This is to help the believer. Apart from helping skeptic and atheists see that, there's light in this. We're not just, blind people. We have evidence. But I also am doing this to help the believer. Like I said, this is a letter to a young believer to help you, your convictions be more solid. That we don't believe the Bible simply because our parents asked us to. We believe the Bible because there is sufficient evidence that points to the authenticity of the Bible. The Bible stories you hear are not fairy tales. We can actually provide proofs, and today we'll be bringing one of them. Archaeological evidence. I like this one because you can't beat this thing. Manuscript evidence, archaeological evidence, you can't beat it. Archaeological evidence, what's that? We're trying to, of course, if you have followed previous videos, you understand that we're trying to provide historical evidences, factual proofs that points to the authenticity of the Bible. And today, I want to bring some of the archaeological discoveries, right? Archaeology is science, right? It's not theology. Some of the archaeological discoveries that points to the authenticity of the Bible. There are a couple of them. I'll name them and I'll zoom into detail to talk about maybe one or two as much as the time can permit. Number one, the Bible mentions the Hittite Empire in 2 Kings chapter 7, verse 6. The Hittites. And archaeological evidence in 1906 confirms that there was such a thing as the Hittite Empire. I can't talk about all of this in details. Go check this up online over your sources and confirm if what I'm saying is true or false. So go check out these things I'm saying, right? Number two is the walls of Jericho. Jericho walls, as communicated in Joshua chapter 6. This has been confirmed and verified by excavations in 1930 to 1936. It sounds very theatrical, and it sounds like one of the things they'll tell me false testimony, right? That it's probably a fairy tale that a mighty wall collapsed by the... Don't worry, I'll do this one in details very shortly. Number three, Pool of Siloam. This was discovered in Jerusalem in 2004. It was excavated archaeologically, and this was contained in scripture in John chapter 9, verse 7. All right. The city of David, of course, has been confirmed by archaeology, even by other non-biblical sources. In 1 Samuel 27, verse 6, you see the city of David mentioned, and archaeological evidences very recently, 1995, confirms this. The Babylonian Empire also has also been confirmed archaeologically, right, as contained in the Bible from Daniel chapter 1 to chapter 5. This has been confirmed to be in existence, and its conquest confirmed, right? In the New Testament, you have Pompeii, you have the Galileo inscription. I'm just trying to do the ones that are more popular. Galileo inscription has been confirmed. The proconsulship of Galilee, I'll do this in details, right? Just follow me. As contained in Acts chapter 18, 12 to 17, was discovered in 1905. You have Pontus, there's something called the Pontus Pilate stone. This was an archaeological discovery discovered in 1961, and you see that Pontus Pilate is that's a governorship position, right? When we talk about Pilate, right? And this confirms his governorship as contained in Matthew chapter 27, verse 2. Caesarea Maritima inscription confirms the city's existence and the Roman governance as written in Acts chapter 8, verse 40. And it was discovered in 1994. There are also some notable archaeological findings, like by some major... I'll give you some names to go read up. Some names. I just give you some names, right? Some discoveries that you can go and read up. And I'll just do two in details. But I want to give you some names of archaeologists that have validated the Bible by archaeological research. You have William Albright, you have Nelson Gulgerk. He was the one that confirmed the biblical locations and events, especially when you have things like rivers in the desert, which you're not likely to believe except you have proof. You have Eliot Maza. He was the one that excavated the city of David and verified biblical accounts. You have John Macrae. He confirmed biblical geography, biblical geography and history and history, particularly of the New Testament. Now, let's do some in details, right? First off, I told you I was going to do the Wall of Jericho. So here's it. A British archaeologist named John Gastang carried on an archaeological discovery or archaeological excavation between 1930 to 1936. And later on, this was also continued by an American archaeologist named Kathleen Kenyon from 1952 to 1957. The location, of course, is in Jericho, and the significance particularly points to the confirmation of what went on in Joshua chapter 6. Now, what was found? A double wall system was found, inner and outer walls, with the inner wall being thicker and more fortified. And of course, it was not on the surface, right? The excavations had to go on and all that for this to be located. And it was indicative of the fact that this was destroyed. It was destroyed, it was pulled down, and the debris, when studied, indicated a very sudden and catastrophic event as documented within scripture. And this goes a long way to confirm what we have in Joshua chapter 6, verse 20. This was done just recently in the 90s, 1930, 1952. But then here's the mind-blowing part. Some more carbon dating and archaeological discoveries was done on this wall as to confirm the particular time in history that this occurred, and it was dated to have occurred between 1200 BC to 1400 BC, matching with the exact dates, exact time period that the event of the Wall of Jericho as reported in scripture happened. This is something you can verify, all right? And I'll give you a couple of books to read in the end if you want to. This goes ahead to prove beyond reasonable that the archaeological discovery, the wall as described within scripture, the double-decker mighty wall that could seat people, the inner wall being thicker, these details given in scripture, and then the carbon dating pointing that the date of this wall's existence resonating with the date, with the time frame of Joshua's existence. You see, this points to the unfalsifiability of this story by a recent archaeological discovery. You move on from that to talk about, you must have read from Acts chapter 18, 12 to 17 about a governor, a particular Roman governor called Gallio within scripture, right? Now, an archaeological discovery was done. It's called the Gallio, Gallio, the Gallio inscription. This discovery was in Greece, of course, which correlates with the Bible location. And it was a recent discovery in 1905, right? And it confirms the proconsulship. I'll say that slowly. Proconsulship. That's like governorship. I'll come to that. It confirms the proconsulship of Gallio, right? Because an inscription, the way these guys write, there are different ways they write. And some inscriptions are carved in stone. So 1,000 years after, you still have that. An inscription was discovered by an archaeologist. And this inscription reads, Tiberius Caesar Augustus, son of divine Augustus, Pontifex Maximus, in the 26th year of Triblican power, consul for the 5th time, and Gallio, son of Libius, proconsul. This confirms that Gallio was a proconsul. Now, who is a proconsul? Let me probably just talk about that very briefly. That refers to, in ancient Rome, a proconsulship was a high-ranking governmental position, right? It was like having a proconsul was a Roman governor appointed to oversee a province, typically for a 1-year term. And the Bible in Acts chapter 18 mentions the name of a proconsul. And that particular name was found in an archaeological discovery in 1905. Yeah, I said that before. In 1905. That's freaking recent. So recent. 1905, we have a discovery confirming something that dates back to 51 BC. Between 51, carbon dating is done on this, and it points to 51, 52 BC. Exact timing where the Acts of the Apostle events were recorded. Where Paul claims that there was this, where scripture claims that there was this particular Roman government official with a particular name, confirmed by an excavation, carbon dated, and then found to correlate with the dates, with the particular time in history that this biblical documentation was done. Think about that. Finally, let me talk about the Pontius Pilate stone. This discovery was found in Caesarea Maritima, Israel in 1961, and it had an inscription: Tiberius Pontius Pilatus, prefect of Judea. This was carbon dated and was found to have existed, to have been written, carved between 26 to 36 AD. The particular timing where scripture still claims that there was such a man as Pontius Pilate. Now, this is not even by history book or by, say, maybe the history book of the Roman. No, this is by an excavation. This is an archaeological proof that is even superior to an alternative writing, because you have an inscription carrying the name of a person, carrying his title, carbon dated to be the same time where Christ existed in the flesh on earth. Think about that. You have the wall of Jericho. You have a Roman, the wall of Jericho, of course, was Old Testament. You have the wall of Jericho, Old Testament. You have the name of a Roman government official confirmed by an inscription seen as written Acts of the Apostle. And then you have the name of and position of a particular another Roman official as contained within the Gospels that played a crucial role in the death of Christ, all carbonated and found to be accurate, falling within the time that the Bible claims they existed. I'm done. Just go online. I'm challenging your mind to think. Go online. Okay, I said I was going to give you some books to read and some sources, just in case you're interested though. So, read Richard Freund. I don't know if I pronounce that name correctly, but it's spelled Freund. I don't think I pronounced it correctly. Read Richard's The Archaeology of the Bible. Read Eric Mayer's Biblical Archaeology, a very short introduction. That's the title of the book. Biblical Archaeology, a very short introduction. Read Bible and Archaeology, a PBS documentary. Read The Search for the Historical Jesus, a BBC documentary. Is that read or watch now? Amongst other possible sources. But you know my point. I'm just trying to challenge your mind to think. If we have archaeological evidences pointing to the fact that there was such a thing as the wall of Jericho, if we have archaeological evidences pointing to the fact that Acts of the Apostles, the names, the details we see in Acts of the Apostles were not a forgery. If we have archaeological evidences pointing to the fact that the name, the position, the details, the timing as contained in the Gospels were not a forgery. We have archaeological evidences, carbon dating, which is scientific. How can we now go from this to possibly suggesting that the New Testament was a forgery? The wall of Jericho sinking was a miracle in that sense of it, right? Given what the Bible describes to have birthed it, to have propagated it. Now think about the fact that we have archaeological proof that points to the existence of that miracle. I like you to just, when you hear things, when you hear certain propositions that sound very intelligent. I mentioned one earlier on in this series, how I heard I was mentioned, somebody mentioned me on Instagram on a video. I think even probably yesterday or today, I got another comment responding to my comment on that video, saying that Jesus existed in the Middle East, and then the language Aramaic, and then he had 12 disciples that now had English names. You know, and the guy was like, think about it, think about it. What's there to think about? You have not done your basics enough. These guys try to sound like they are very intelligent. We're the ones not thinking. We are sheep. We are not sound people. We are not thinking people. We just believe everything we are told. Meanwhile, when you think about it deeply and actually scrutinize the evidence they provide, you will just see how it is. Because in the first place, I had mentioned before that even those names were not even English names. Those names had to be transliterated to be English. The word Paul is from a Latin and Greek origin. It was not English at all. In fact, in different cultures, in different language, you have different variations of the Paul is English. You have different variations that were transliterated. There's a difference between translation and transliteration. Translation is more of just it focuses on meaning, right? If I say come in English and you want to translate to Igbo, you can say bia. If I say come in English and you want to transliterate, you're going to try to pick the alphabet of the English language and find its closest relative in that language you want to transliterate into, right? And then such a way that you retain a synonymous name or a synonymous alphabet, right? Whilst what it means in this language will still be what it means in this language. But you're not trying to translate meaning in transliteration. That's not the focus of today. But my point is just to say that whenever you hear these kinds of things as a believer, whenever you see things that sound very intelligent, whenever you hear or see things that sound like a discredit on scripture, somebody goes, well, Jesus, I saw a comment, you know, this thing's flying around. Well, I just made one comment. I said that it's not every trend that a believer, a sound, properly discipled believer should be part of. I saw a video lately, one of these popular guys, and I like his comedy genre. I don't know why he did that video. And it was like how that a lion took him and he was running from a forest or whatever. You know, one crazy story that was referencing one of the things that had just gone in public space. And just one statement he made along his statements. He said, if you believe that somebody fed 5,000 people with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fishes, that you must believe him. You see the logic already. He's trying to discredit the biblical account on account of the fact that it doesn't sound very correspondent with his logic. Now, there is nothing illogical about that if we have a definition of God, and that definition of God is correct, and God exists, and we have Jesus in the flesh who is God. Even if Jesus was not God in the flesh, if we have a definition of God as the greatest, I'm off my script, as the greatest conceivable being, and the greatest conceivable, the most powerful being, and you have the definition of God as the most powerful existent entity, and then you have God saying, I can feed 5,000 people with 2 loaves of bread, with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fishes. What's illogical about it? It's consistent, except you fought the first claim to say there is no God, he's not all-powerful. Then that second claim cannot follow. But if the first is possible, then the second is very logically possible. So you see all this discrediting comes up. The believer's conviction needs to be solidified. My brother, you have not believed a lie. We have scientific proof. We have archaeological evidence. We have manuscript evidence. We have just logical evidence. Maybe I don't have time. I wanted to just add this one about, I did embarrassing testimony yesterday. There's this, maybe I'll talk about that tomorrow. We're going to think about the apostles, the earliest apostles, right? If it is true that they sat down to forge this thing, to create this lie, this, what would be their gain? What was their profit? Because all of them, except John the Beloved, died by persecution. Not one person has showed up to say, may I just confess? Now lie. Now it was Paul or it was Peter that brought this idea. It was not my idea. I'm tired. My family has died. How can you lie, stand for the lie so much, and die for the lie, and you have one person, 10 people, 11 people dying for the lie, 15 people, hundreds of people through history died for the lie that they forged. I mean, what's the logic? What you have believed is not a lie. And that's the point of this class today. I hope you learned something. Share this video, drop a comment. Glad to have you. Thank you, all of you. Thank you so much for staying through. Have a great night.